Getting up from the table in Doyle's tavern, she walked up to the bar. The bartender, Duffy, was wiping a glass. She got a bottle of beer and saw old Jack at the end of the bar. They used to work together during the early days. Jack told her he had retired and it was good to see her again. Walking into the back room, she spied her friend, Madame Shui. Sweet Tooth sat down and said hello. Madame Shui, as usual, displayed no emotion at seeing her friend. Sara asked if everything was all right, and Madame Shui replied that corruption and evil had come to Saint Denis. Opium and stealing of supplies. Madame Shui told her further that the police were involved, and one of the key operatives was a Frenchman who lived in one of the mansions. After a few moments more, Sweet Tooth bade her a good evening and got up to leave, and as she did, she saw Mr. Fong, who owned the restaurant down the street, and he told her to. Careful. Turning, she bumped into Aunt Sally, the house madam. At the same time, a familiar voice called out to her, and she saw it was the twin working girls, Olive and Olivette. Looking at them, she could never tell them apart. She turned and walked towards the front door of the bar. Opening the door, she paused and considered eating at the soup kitchen, but decided not to. Taking a shortcut through a back alley, she slowly walked back to her hotel. The back alleys were a good way to move around the city without being seen, especially if you were wanted and being hunted by bounty hunters. Pausing, She stopped, and in doing so, she was momentarily illuminated by the moonlight, and as she listened for footsteps, all she heard was a church bell tolling the hour and the sound of a whip. She turned to check a dark corner area, but found nothing. She continued walking when a voice in the shadows called out to her menacingly. She stopped and approached the dim outline of a large man who suddenly pushed her back. After he challenged her, Sweet Tooth stood staring at him for a few moments, at which time he tried to pull a shotgun on her. Bad move on his part, as Sara quickly took it away and shot him. It must have been a gang, because after the shot, they came out in numbers, which she dispatched just as fast as they appeared. She was becoming annoyed by them, as the gunfire and commotion was sure to draw the attention of the police. Dispatching the last of them, she quickly left the area and headed down to the waterfront, where she met Slim Jim, a young black man who loaded wagons. He told her where he could find the Frenchman's house on the other side of town, since he had just delivered a load of material there a few days before. The next evening, she stood in the backyard of the Frenchman's mansion. As she walked towards the back of the house and past the fountain, it began to rain. As she started walking up the stairs towards the back porch, she took note that the rain falling actually was a good thing because it helped mask her approach. Throwing open the French doors, she walked in, half expecting to run into other people, but no one was there. She continued across the back foyer and into the front entryway. She turned into the front parlor and drawing her knife at the same time. Sweet Tooth said nothing. She looked at the fire, then at him, and asked why you would sell people supplies and pay others to steal it back. He told her it was good for business, and besides, what did she care? That's when she showed him why she cared. Because it caused my parents to get killed. Standing over him, she reached down and picked up his gold pocket watch, which he wouldn't need anymore. She walked out the front door and into the night as the rain pounded down. Walking down the street, she welcomed the rain as it kept many people off the streets. The less, the better. As she walked, she considered what she would do next. It had snowed overnight, but was still snowing as she crouched behind a tree stump and took a firing position, but before she could get off a shot, she was tackled. She then knocked her assailant off of her and quickly fired 2 shots, dispatching him. Then it was now or never. She charged toward the Maxim gun, knocking the man to the ground, shooting him. Turning, she quickly sprinted towards the house, through the front door and up the stairs, firing and reloading as she went.
Operator! Boy, I kill like it's free!
Crouching near a doorway, she carefully searched for other gang members, and as she found them, she took them out.
This fight will be your last!
Returning to the front door, she ran past the gazebo, using it as cover, and dispatched 2 other gang members. One of the last outlaws she saw, she ran towards him, knocking him to the ground, firing a shot, wounding him. As she was reloading, she was hit from the side by another outlaw, but she was able to push him away and in one motion shot the first in the head and the second in the chest, killing him. By the time it was all over, it had become dark. She lit a cigar and savored it momentarily. She had heard of a couple of businessmen who frequented the Hotel Licorne, who did business with a gang that had its base nearby. She figured that maybe they might be able to shed some light on its location if she could convince them she was part of it. Dismounting her horse, Ghost, in front of the hotel, she stood looking at the building, half expecting to see the 2 of them in front. She waited all night without them appearing.
I got a rash on my thigh again.
The next night, she followed a known outlaw who unwittingly led her to the 2 gentlemen who were supposed to meet her in front of the hotel the night before. They stood smoking and drinking, occasionally talking, next to a column by a building in the square. She walked up to them, exchanging pleasantries. After some small talk, they inquired of her motives. She moved in close and let them know of a large shipment of gold and moonshine coming from a mine and distillery in the mountains. She then told them, "You tell anyone and you'll be sorry," shaking her fist to emphasize her promise. But she would need extra muscle, and did they know where she could find them? They replied they did indeed, and they told her of an abandoned mansion on the edge of the swamp near town. As they finished speaking, she heard a couple nearby who overheard her conversation. Turning, she walked down the steps, where she soon saw a tall young man and a woman. She waved, and the woman said, Sweet Tooth couldn't take a chance that they could identify her, so she took care of business in her own fashion.
Mr. Kate.
Enlisting the help of
I feel like
Captain
you've been avoiding
Debierski,
me.
Esquire,
Hey,
an
you
old
must
trail
be the
boss she knew.
Braithwaite.
She explained what
How
she had
sad.
found out,
From
and
Prince
he
to
agreed to
peasant.
help her
I got
catch
guns
them
covering
in the
this
act.
whole area.
Is that a threat?
Let me go. I'll call him up.
Arriving at the meeting place in the
And you
swamp,
can have Danny
they
Lee.
observed
What?
the wagons with the
I can
moonshine.
have him.
The gold was a
How
ruse.
very
Appear.
kind of you.
She figured
And I
the
also
remaining
have
gang members would try to
$100
steal it,
right
but
here.
was surprised when a federal
Yeah.
agent and his men showed
Never
up
let
to
it be
steal
said
it
that I'm not
instead.
a reasonable man.
Watching from cover, they observed
Go on.
the agent and his
If
men
you're going,
steal
why are they
Mr.
letting him
Caton's
go?
money
Really?
and take his
You're all
friend
but
prisoner.
finished anyway. I only catch the big
They were
fish.
surprised
Put
by
your
one of the
goddamn
agent's
hands
men and held at gunpoint.
All right,
Sweet
start
Tooth found
moving.
out that the federal agent was, in fact, the one
Goddamn
who
you.
ran the whole operation.
Oh, here he is, the half-wit. It's not really his fault, fellas. His mother drank a lot.
Goddamn son of a bitch.
Thanks for all this. Didn't you ever wonder why I kept you alive, you born idiot? How's your aunt, by the way? I never got a chance to ask you at the boat. I hear she's looking well. Bastard!
After the explosion of moonshine, Captain Debierski and Sweet Tooth made quick work of the remaining gang members and had the agent cornered.
Okay, I think this is all gotten a little out of hand now. Don't you? Come on. That press tag is just using you like she uses everyone else. You know what they do to people? That murder federal agents. I can make that go away.
He tried to
Kill
wiggle
me.
his way out, but in the
Be
end,
running
justice was
for the
served.
rest of your life.
She rode slowly up to the Saint Denis Police Department and dismounted her horse. Opening her saddlebag, she pulled out a stick of dynamite she had taken from the gang's mansion. She casually lit the fuse, walked into the police station where she threw it. She quickly turned around, ran back out the door to her horse where she quickly mounted up and rode out of town. She thought about what the colonel had said.
I'll see you soon, I'm sure. And if you should choose to amend your ways and try a different path, well, I'm sure Mr. Jones could help guide you. A little.
As to what happened to Sweet Tooth Sara after that, no one seems to really know. It's just like she disappeared into thin air and became a legend.